We're in the National Forest right here, and it's been cut on already. The National Forest was never, ever supposed to be cut. Ever. As long as the wind blows and the grass grows, rivers flow, words of our great white father of a long time ago, that these treaties will stand. A lot of these insurance companies are logging. A lot of your retirement plan money is building hydroelectrics. It's helping cut down the forest.
Arlecho Creek is a place where we can go so we can isolate ourselves if we're feeling bad or sad or sorrow or we're confused. We commune with Mother Nature and Mother Nature communes with us. When I mean about communing with Mother Nature, we listen to her, we care for her, we respect her. When we respect Mother Nature, respect what her teachings, she can teach us a lot. When we, in return, listen to her, we have to listen with open ears and an open heart, and also listen with respect. Our future leaders need a tool. Our ancestors that went on to the spirit world had tutored us, taught us all their knowledge so that we'd have a tool. And now, in return, in the continue of education, we are being educated a little more because every day in life, everything's getting modernized, but still we have to use that modern technology to help enhance Arlecho Creek so it become a very good ecosystem.
It's not just that we have a deep commitment to teach our own children their culture and their history and their values, but at some point we have to share a part of who we are with the dominant culture and mainstream people, because if we don't, then it leads to a lot of misunderstanding, and what people have to draw from are stereotypes and very bad literature that's been written about the Lummi, but certainly been written about Native Americans in general. The reason that we, when we created this environmental studies program at the college, the reason that we decided to take a site visit to Arlecho, which was not the stereotypical field trip, because field trip had a connotations of being able to do work and exercises, but we wanted to give students a sense of place, a sense of being there, and experience. But the way that this culture has evolved, the American culture, one of the beliefs is that everything needs to be literate. And one of the beliefs in the old culture is that in order for people to understand, they have to experience it. And in order to experience a sense of place and a sense of identity in that place, you have to be there.
At the beginning, I really didn't know what to expect by going up to Arlecho. I thought, oh, I'd go up to see a pretty sight, taking some sightseeing, and as the day developed, it became much more than that. Me and my companion, John Rumboldt, were traveling down to the creek, and at that time we couldn't even see it, and I couldn't even hear the creek. And I was up there 2,000 feet and thinking, well, where is this creek at, you know, and how are we going to get there, you know? And we're sitting there, and I'm standing there, this guy's crazy. And of course, he worked for the service for 20 years, the United States Forest Service, so kind of had trust that he knew what he was doing.
It's just a privilege to be able to go here with someone who's a member of the Lummi tribe, and to whom Arlecho Creek it really does have significance.
It kind of captivated me in a way that, oh God, how could I say? It grabbed me. I was still about like 700 feet away, and it just kind of grabbed me. I don't know, there's no way of actually accurately saying how it grabbed a hold of me, and it was kind of pulling me down to it.
To be able to see how he reacted to being there, such really elation in his face. When we finally made it down to Arlecho Creek, and he was standing in the water and just screaming. And yeah, it was a great day.
It truly made me who I am. That's what I'm trying to say. As a Native American, to be able to wake up all the senses of your sight, your smell, your taste, your touch, your hearing, to wake up all those senses and then go beyond more, that spiritual sense in your heart. This is what Arlecho Creek means to me as a Native American.
One of the aspects of memory in our history is the resources themselves. Is that they all have their place and they have all their order, from the trees to the water to the rocks to all the plant life there, and they're all dependent upon each other, and that's what it knows and understands, and that's what it shares with us as a people. And if we go there for meditation or paying our respect to any of the resources, that's what we reflect on, and then we could ask for any of the teachings it may want to share with us, and for us to be a better people and learning to get along with each other.
I remember when we could drive and see the rich green forest for miles up in the mountains. And I remember when my sister took me up there the first time and walked me through the trees and into a stream where we would do what we would call the spiritual bath, you know, the cold waters of the mountains. And I can never forget that. I will never forget it. And how we worked so hard in the 80s when we started the effort to save the old growth forest. But one of the things that people mentioned over and over was clear water, clean, pure, pristine water to go to for the spiritual bath, for the time of prayer and cleansing, purifying. And nowadays, when we go up there, we have to look very, very hard to find a place like that. So I'm wishing that the times that I went up there with my sister, that I had paid more attention to the beautiful places that are no longer there. The times that we went there over the years and we began to see the traces of a modern society. We saw the evidence of the styrofoam cups, even diapers that were left laying in these beautiful areas that people had come to share and enjoy, and then left the debris there. And we looked farther and farther for places that could not be reached and treated that way. I guess now that it's almost impossible. One day I was driving a group of young children to the Tulalip Indian Reservation, and they were a young canoe club. And when we drove back, they looked up and they saw a hill in the Whatcom County area, and they just let out these loud cries of, "Ooh, look at that, that's awful, what happened?" Looking up there, and then I saw the hills with the clear cuts. And I had to be the one to tell them the bad news about clear cuts. They didn't know about them. And they were seeing it for the first time, you know, with clear eyes, how strange and ugly that looked to them. And I didn't realize that it affects me like that internally. And when I heard those children cry out loud like that, and I realized how it was going to affect them always, you know, forever, because that forest will never be the way it was.
Our people were starving at one time, and so they sent somebody out to look for salmon, look for food for the people. And they found the salmon woman out there, and they brought her back here. And when she came back, she brought her children with her, which were the salmon. And she told the salmon, her children, to go up the river and to make their beds. You know, so they went up the river and they made their beds, and every year the salmon would come back. Okay, so every year the people were happy. They were eating, they were eating, they were eating, they were happy. Finally, one day when it came along where we don't know who it was, whether it was a child or someone, we don't know who the person was, that said, "We don't like fish anymore. That's all we ever eat around here is fish. That's all we ever get around here is fish." So salmon woman, she got offended that they were talking about her children. They didn't like them anymore. So she left, and she took all her children. And the people starved again because they had no more food. And the people were starving again, so they sent the same man out again to look for her. And she was way out there, and she was crying again, and they convinced her that she should come back. So she came back to the village down here, and she came in, and she told her children, "You go up the river and you only make your beds for a short period of time. You don't stay there all year. You know, you just go and stay there. You be ready to go anytime, you know." So we always have to give thanks to the salmon woman and her children, because we always have to remember that our food can be taken away from us.
As contact came to our people in this area, we began to see a small period of time in our history within the last 100 and 150 years where they've totally, because of the social norm, says that we need to be looking at it in a different way, and yet these generations now, we still look at that there's still balance there.
I have a certain amount of pride in sharing something like this. It's like I say, it's really hard for me to talk about it, because all my life I've been told to keep that to myself and never tell a white man, you know, because if you tell a white man, then he's going to turn around and he has no more use for you, you know.
Yeah, just recently, you know, we were on the radio station, and that was the predominant theme is, why don't we be like you? Why don't you just come and join us, and, you know, you guys can be like us. We can all be equal. And we know that's not true.
I've heard all the stories of the suppression of our language, and the beatings and the punishments and the starvation and the whipping and the electrical shocks, and all of the stories of our elders, of what they've been through with their language and their culture of their people. I've heard those stories. I've physically seen the scars on their bodies of being punished for their language and their culture. I would say yes, it still goes on. They have succeeded in helping reorientate our people as to the values of their lifestyle today. And we value the education, and we're ignoring our culture. I mean, that's a hard thing to say.
I went to public school here in Ferndale, so prejudiced towards Native people. It's awful.
So that's in teachers or students?
Teachers and students, yeah. Because every time we walk down the hallway, these people will either try to beat us up or even flipping us off when we walk by, making bad remarks about Indian people. And then all the time I had to defend myself, but every time it comes to the end, when the fight breaks up, it's always the Indians' fault. That I get expelled from their schools. Not even started, I was just trying to defend myself. But I got the blame, so I got booted out.
Well, you know, the whole thing about having to leave your home, having to leave your language, having to leave your culture and tradition away, and do that in a way that was not agreed to by both parties, by both peoples, by children, that there's probably a great deal of sorrow still within the eyes of our people. But as we come home, you know, and then we heal from all of that, and we see what needs to be done, and that's why Arlecho Creek's so important.
When our younger generation loses that cultural gap, they turn to alcohol, drugs, gangs, and whatever, or they end up in prisons or end up passing away. And we, in return, would like to turn that cultural gap around to get our younger generation to follow the old ways of our ancestors.
When I went away to college, I drank and I drank and I drank and I drank because I was in a society, in a place where I didn't know nothing about. And I was lost, and I don't know which way I'm going to go. Where am I going to go? I don't know how to act like a white person. I'm a Native American. How am I supposed to, how can you put me in a society of white people and expect me to act like a white person? I don't know how. You know, that's not me. So I did it, and I watched, and I learned, and I did all the little things that everybody else did. But in that, I lost myself.
One of the things that I learned in university was that America's children are in trouble. America's children die just like our children do. And what is it that America can really do to bring that sense of self, that sense of being, that sense of identity, that sense of place to its children? And I don't know that in how they came together and became this great melting pot, that there are very many components of America that have, or Canada or wherever it is, that have enough left in their knowledge base, in their memory of their past, that tells them who they are. And if you don't know who you are and you want to know, where can you go?
It's things, it's a different way of life, it's our values, and we try and keep our young people on the right road to always respect and honor the environment, the Mother Earth, who we are and where we come from.
Yeah, I respect all cultures, walks of life, and in that due respect, I would just like in that return have the others realize that we still have our identity. As 1,000 years ago, it still lives and thrives today in each and every Indian community.
We teach our young people to say, "Chashashwakwalux," and I come from the survivors of the flood. That's who we are, our identity as to where we come from.
We could call, for example, chapai, which is a cedar, which is one of the very first gifts that was given to our people, and within that, it's one of the caretakers as well. The cedar people, as we would refer to it, and our relationship to areas like Tsak, and then Wollemi is another concept, which is the glaciers that are up in Shuckson and Mount Baker, and that it sustains everything, the water that we have and how it relates to many of the streams. We call them Statatlo creeks, like Arlecho Creek, and many of the other watershed streams that we have. So everything has a beginning and everything has an ending, and then anything in between has a cycle. So all those elements are important to us, and through the chapai, because when it was given to our original people, it was always to have its limbs up towards the Creator, and in a sense, and then our elders portray that through what we call tayat, thanking the people with the hands. And that's a common gesture that all our people use among all of our coastal people here, to thank the people with the hands, whether it's a greeting when we first see each other, we go like this, or after they've given some encouraging words, we put our hands up. It's called tayat, thanking the people with the hands. And it's those kind of relationships and learning that we've learned from our resources and nature and from the Creator, and that's what again makes us the people that we are today.
The drum is the heartbeat. In the songs that we sing, maybe somebody might be sick or feeling bad or just in sorrow. A song can pick up a person if they're ill, and physically as well as spiritually. And the songs that we sing, we heard from Mother Nature, is a gift from her.
I have some friends now that have passed on, and some friends are very instrumental in my life and given me strength for what I do. And they've always emphasized the strength of the song and how the songs come to them, come to every one of us. And what we do, what we acknowledge, what we respect about those songs will carry you a long ways in your life. It's something that is born in the headwaters of places like Arlecho Creek, and are learned that way and are passed on. Well, you know, when I got out, that's what I heard. I heard my friend, and I heard the waters, and I heard the song.
In the language of the people here, there isn't anything that distinguishes between the tangible and the not, and the intangible. And that, I think, really demonstrates a worldview in which those things were not separate to us, the way that they are separate today in American belief systems, and Christian belief systems.
Our songs that we have there for them, it's those, because every origin story has a song in it, and in those origin stories, songs and words, and that's what it perpetuates, it sustains that relationship between the Creator, the resources, and us as a people.
See, the very important aspects about songs is that a place where there's no human activity needs to be isolated, and the songs are stored there by Mother Nature. And when the songs are ready to come out, when a person goes up there with respect, only then with open ears and open heart, you'll be able to hear that song. When you hear that song, don't be afraid to sing it out.
We call it swallowing here at Lummi, and Nukwachamas call it hutch, but it's that like an institutional memory from beginning of time, and then we could always go there and begin to learn from that and understand that. It's always there. Whether we choose to participate with it or not, it's always there. Our elders taught us that everything has a spirit, and everything has a living spirit, and we just need to make ourselves available to it. Again, like the lesson could be is like the kapai, open hands, if we're only open to it.
And that's it. I think any forest, any water, any body of water, the stream, there's sacredness there, what you talk about, and peace. Because I could go back in my backyard. I've got a cedar forest right behind my house. I love it. I love to go back there and just sit because of what it gives me. Peace and calmness. So, and just what the forest does. I don't need to take a camera to take a picture because it's here in me. I could go up and I just see it. I can see it now as I'm talking to you. The entrance into the forest. It's with me.
The photograph in the background here elaborates on that in the salmon ceremony, because it is the spirit of the salmon, the spirit of the cedar tree. All those things are only portrayed through the ceremony. One is called chacha and the other is called sacha. Chacha is the things that the Creator gave to us, and sacha is the process which we sustain that and show our respect towards that.
The one way that we have preserved the way of thinking has been through elders who preserved the knowledge, elders who taught that worldview to the people today.
So when I came home to Lummi to be with my people, as I sat in the gathering, I think, oh my God, I was so lost. What was I thinking? And that's when I start turning to my culture and realizing that there has to be a balance. We can pretend to be white, but we will never be white. We can live like a white person, but we will never be white.
Many times when we go to our elders and say, well, what can you tell me about this or about that? And then they start talking about the history of that. And then because we want to be in the mainstream of life, we say, well, that's not what I'm asking. What I want to know is this. But then they respond by telling us, well, I am telling you that. So it's just a matter of being able to draw the bigger picture first and then see where you fit in that.
As it is now. If I wasn't in my spiritual ways, I probably wouldn't be here today. If somebody didn't take the time to teach me how to sit down and pray, or to go up and go for a swim, or to be as close to nature as I am today, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be caught up in the drugs and the alcohol and everything else out there that's bad. That's why it's so important that we empower our children with our culture, with our belief system.
Basically, our tribe has existed in a coastal Salish way, as they call Longhouse, Smokehouse. And it's a spiritual awakening of finding oneself. People go through many rituals and ceremonies, and of song and dance, fasting and praying. And this is how we kept our people alive for these many years. The secret is that we pray. And that's what kept our culture going all these years, is that we never give up hope. We never give up our prayer. For our prayer to the brother and sister to the left and the right of us. So we always gotta pray and always have hope. This is important for our culture. This is what keeps our culture intact. This is our catalyst. This is what keeps us Lummi native. This is what keeps us coastal Salish from everywhere, from Nooksack to Lummi to Skagit, Swinomish to Layla, Suquamish, Nisqually, Stillaquamish, Quinault, Queets, Macaw. This is what makes us all our native way.
As we begin to mature in our life, then it is those things that we begin to know and understand that that's what we need to be sharing with our young people and the future generations. There is a continuum there where the past, the present, and the future is all the same for us when it comes to our culture. It's not separate, they're all dependent upon each other. What we do as an individual now, at this level, we know and understand that it's respecting our past, but it's also protecting our future. So collectively, we understand that.
When we get into our political setting, we're asked to talk about vision. We're asked to talk about the future. And most often, that discussion of the future is about the past. And what is the past, and what does it look like, and what do we want from the past for the future for our children? And it's places like Arlecho, it's the things that Arlecho can teach us to live in balance with what is around us, the other communities, if you will. That's what we view as real vision.
The environment has changed quite a bit, and it is very alarming. It is very alarming to see the changes that are taking place right here at home. I mean, it's very alarming. And John Q. and Jane Q. Public are not aware of the changes that are occurring right here in their own backyards. They're not really aware of it. And it's going to affect them. I mean, if it's not the forests, it's going to be the water. And now today it's the power, the electricity. And then comes the food, and then what? We give thanks to the Creator for when we go to the mountains to gather the bark, to make the baskets, to dig the roots. We thank the Creator for everything that we do as a people. And a lot of people today don't even say thank you, for the food on their table.
It's a loss that you could never recover. And when you're older like this, you know that it will never be the same. And how do you tell the children? So you say, well, what's the next best possible that you can do? So we know we can isolate some areas and protect them, but for how long? We want to think that it's going to be forever. I'm concerned about the fact that so many people have moved to our state because they felt that it was a good, healthy place for people to live. And now we're facing the problem of not having enough water to serve all of them. And what do you do next? And there doesn't seem to be any strong planning going on to help people face this issue. So, in a way, I think it gives me a lot of pride to know that my tribe, the Lummi people, have worked really hard to open up these discussions and try to help lead the way for others to join in and get acquainted with us. There are families besides Indian families who feel the way we do. So I just continue to grieve over the loss of all that. And I felt like any of the Lummies who still had the energy and strength to go out there to fight to protect that environment should have our prayers and our blessings in any way that we can share it. And all the people that care about it with us and who join in and help us, that the blessings will be on them too. Because I look at this as sacred land.
Sterling Forest in southern New York and northern New Jersey is an area that's been recognized as a specific forest area for 200 years. And when we got to studying Sterling Forest, we found it was the largest block of contiguous forest, unfragmented with roads and homes and all, that remained in this whole highland stretch. And it was a link, a key link. There were some state park and public lands in New Jersey, and a large area called Bear Mountain and Harriman State Park in New York State, which went clear up to the Hudson River, which were already protected lands, but right in a link connecting those was this private land that was going to be this massive development of 50,000 people or more. And it was just the wrong place for that kind of major development, and people had to realize that.
12 million people can get to Sterling Forest in a 2-hour drive. It's really a very populated area. You have the New York City metropolitan area, the Newark, New Jersey, densely populated area, and it is like the green lung of this region, and to lose that green lung would be devastating.
We had the wonderful opportunity to have Chattiscatum, Chief Johnny Whitecloud, and some others to come and help us in our struggle to protect Sterling Forest. And what we asked for was to have a blessing, their blessing, a Native American blessing on Sterling Forest to emphasize in a spiritual way the importance of making certain this land stayed as wild lands and was to be that way forevermore. We gathered alongside of the lake, and the flute music and chants and prayers were offered by the Native American group there. It was probably the first time that those hills and the lake had heard Native American drumming for 200 years. It's a bigger image and vision that we're really looking at than just two forests, one in the west coast and one in the east. It's to develop and protect wildlands all across the United States and North America. And by having these two ends come together, it provides us a means to provide that vision and link it all across the country.
Well, it's quite an extraordinary place, and it's extraordinary because of its beauty and because of its of the forest itself, but having a sense of its connection to the native cultures there, to the Lummi Nation, is extraordinary as well. And I think there'll be a sense of, there's a spirituality that'll come up with the next generation of environmental leaders. There'll be a real mission to the work that the folks that we train and prepare to go out into the world to do their conservation research have. I think they'll see their mission as critically important. And that is evident up there in Arlecho with the people who are caring for it and looking for ways to understand how Arlecho works and how to preserve it and how it can also be beneficial to the communities around it.
Crown Pacific acquired this land from a predecessor who was about to harvest some pretty precious timber on this tract. Well, once we acquired the Arlecho Creek tract and got involved in the negotiations with the Lummi Nature Conservancy, I mean, we became intimately aware of not the environmental significance, but more so the spiritual significance of the property. I mean, it was more than economy or trees or anything like that. It was a different realm to the Indians that had no time framework. So I think it was more the spirituality of the forest that we understood after dealing with the Indians and the Nature Conservancy, and it's one of the reasons we really worked hard and were more than patient in trying to get a transaction done. Preserving this, what I'll call sanctuary of old growth, and the tradition of the Lummi is going up and fasting for many times months on end to find their spirit and their spirit song that will go on forever. I think that's the most significant thing.
For my past generations and for some future generations, in a good way, we'd like to preserve Arlecho Creek for our cultural identity, because this may happen down the road, another generation or two, to another native that finds his path along Arlecho Creek, path of life, beginning of life. This is where we begin as our Indian people. It's upriver, where the salmon go to spawn, and they lay their eggs, and they hatch, they go to sea, they come back. This is all the beginning of life, where the life begins for our native people. I'm thankful for Arlecho Creek for all what it has done for me in my life.
That the concern for the children and the respect for the elders all comes together here as we talk about saving the beautiful environment that our history and our culture is set in here in this county, Whatcom County, where my people have lived for centuries, and I can trace family tree back, for hundreds of years. And I try to imagine what it must have been like when they were here, and I could imagine the lush green trees and the plants and the flowing water and the birds free, the deer and the elk. And I can just see that lady getting in that canoe and heading over to Vancouver Island, paddling all by herself. I'm grateful to all the people that are working to save the Mother Earth, that this will be a place that children of the future will be safe and healthy in. Years from now, great-great-grandchildren will have this healthy place to be. And that they will look back and be able to say thank you to their ancestors for doing the best they could to save it and keep it safe for them. I'm grateful.
These headwaters are the beginning of all life. And we suffer through the questions of, well, what happened and why are things dying and why are things polluted and disrupted? And if we pretend to fix things here at the mouth of the rivers or any other place within this ecosystem and things still aren't being corrected, then I would say that, well, we need to look upstream. For us to be talking about the environment and how Arlecho Creek fits into our view of the environment, what we need to do to protect the environment, is that it's really interesting that we feel that it's something that we, I don't know, in today's culture, we should have dominion over, when really that's not true. That we're just a part of that, and we all have a place, as my friend used to say, between the ant and the mountain. We fit somewhere in there.